Imagine feeling your vibration rise right now, without having to meditate for hours, repeat mantras, or force positivity, because the master of the occult and vibration left behind a code that few have deciphered, and it's about to be revealed here. This technique was hidden for centuries, not by accident, but because it does something most modern spiritual practices can't. It stabilizes your vibration at a point where nothing shakes you. And you're going to feel it in the next few seconds. Your energy field is going to start reacting, because what you're about to discover here isn't theory nor an empty promise. It's the frequency that the master called the state of vibrational permanence, and it begins to activate when you align with a simple yet forgotten truth. But pay attention. It's not enough to know what it is. You need to feel how it works, and that starts now. In the next few minutes, you'll understand why so many people fluctuate, even when they're spiritual, and what the invisible mistake is that destroys the vibrational field of those who try to keep their energy high. And once you understand this first hidden point, your energy will never be the same again. This isn't just another technique. It's the foundation of everything. Now take a deep breath, because what begins here will shift your field and your reality. Matter is not made of matter. Ultimately, everything that exists is vibration. Hans-Peter Dewar, quantum physicist and successor to Werner Heisenberg at the Max Planck Institute. You grew up hearing that you needed to feel good all the time. That high vibration meant smiling, being grateful, repeating nice phrases, and avoiding any negative thoughts. They told you that if you were sad, something was wrong with your energy. That if you felt fear, you were attracting bad things. That if you weren't always in a positive frequency, then you weren't spiritual enough. But all of that was the first lie. A lie that was repeated so many times it became a rule. A lie sold as absolute truth by gurus, coaches, and even belief systems that disconnected from the essence of spirituality. And this distortion created something silent, but devastating spiritual guilt. People began punishing themselves for feeling what is natural. They started faking peace, forcing lightness, manufacturing optimism while inside they were sinking in conflict. The result is a superficial, unstable, fragile vibrational field, like a soap bubble, pretty on the outside but ready to burst. The person meditates, makes affirmations, shares inspirational quotes, tries hard to appear elevated, but all it takes is a small frustration, a wrong word, any little setback, and everything falls apart. What seemed like high vibration was just a polished emotional layer trying to cover up what's really pulsing underneath. Because true vibration doesn't come from denial, it comes from integration. It's not about avoiding the shadow. It's about recognizing that it vibrates too, that it's also part of the field, and that trying to eliminate it is exactly what keeps you from truly sustaining high energy. The lie was to convince you that high vibration means the absence of pain, when in fact, what defines vibrational elevation is not the absence of pain, but your ability to move through it with awareness without losing yourself. Vibration doesn't drop because you feel sadness. It drops when you identify with that sadness so much that you forget who you are. When you reduce yourself to the emotion and abandon your presence, what no one told you is that emotions are temporary, but vibration is a base frequency. A person with high vibration can still feel anger, cry, go through hard times, but they don't break. They don't disconnect from themselves. They don't abandon their essence, because there is a deep vibrational root, holding everything behind the emotional surface. And that's exactly where the second most harmful part of this lie comes in: forced positivity. The kind that tells you to smile when everything in you wants to scream. The kind that demands gratitude when your soul is begging for truth. The kind that turns spirituality into performance, into appearance, into disguise. The Master's teachings weren't about pretending everything was fine. They were about activating a real vibrational force, one that stays alive even when everything around you falls apart. He didn't talk about avoiding chaos. He talked about moving through it with presence. This distorted view of vibration created a fragile spirituality, a generation of seekers who feel like they're doing it wrong because they can't vibe high all the time, who blame themselves for not being enlightened, who believe they're failing because their outer reality hasn't changed yet. But the mistake isn't theirs. The mistake is in the lie that was sold as the path. True high frequency is silent. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't show itself in constant smiles or ready-made quotes. It shows up in small conscious choices, in presence amidst discomfort, in the ability to stay whole, even in the face of doubt. What the master left behind wasn't a manual for positivity. It was a vibrational key that can be accessed even in the depths of pain. A technique that doesn't depend on appearances, nor on temporary emotional states, but on a deep recognition of your own energy, sustained not by denial, but by inner coherence. And when you understand this, something inside starts to unravel. The pressure to seem evolved, the need to pretend, the weight of spiritual self-demand. And in that silent relief, a new vibration begins to emerge, the hidden law that shapes reality and has always been active, a frequency that doesn't need to prove itself, that simply is. And when it stabilizes, even in small sparks, something starts to happen around you. Situations change. People draw near. The air feels lighter. Life responds differently. But this is no accident. There's a law at work in this process, a law as old as time, yet barely recognized. And even without being named, it has never stopped working. It's alive now in this very moment, organizing everything around you, because everything vibrates. And this vibration isn't some hidden detail of reality. It's the invisible mechanism behind all that exists. Modern science, even unintentionally, confirmed what the ancients already knew, that there is no solid matter, that what we call reality is in fact a network of particles in constant motion, that every atom vibrates, that every thought is an electromagnetic pulse, that the reality you touch is a stable illusion sustained by frequency. But the ancients went beyond science. They didn't just observe this with technical eyes. They used this understanding as a tool for creation. In ancient Egypt, the principle of vibration was a law of manifestation. The priests knew that by altering their internal frequency, they changed what manifested outside. The temple was the body, the mind was the altar, and the energy field was the bridge between the visible and the invisible. In ancient India, this wisdom took the form of spanda, a term meaning sacred pulsation. There, the universe wasn't static. It was dance. It was rhythm. It was divine vibration moving through everything. Brahman wasn't a still entity. It was a living consciousness pulsing through everything, from a leaf to silence. And the human being, in this view, was a spark of that pulsation. These cultures didn't use this knowledge to theorize. They used it to interfere, to co-create, to heal, to awaken states of consciousness that reorganized the entire structure of reality. Vibration wasn't just a concept. It was a real tool, a code, a portal. And here is the point almost everyone ignores. This vibration that structures everything doesn't depend on what you see, feel, or say. It responds to what you are. The universe doesn't hear your words. It hears your frequency. And that frequency isn't what you try to project. It's what you sustain in silence when no one is watching. The master understood this with precision, and he kept this understanding as a key because he knew that if you manipulate frequency, you reorganize the field. And if you reorganize the field, you reorganize matter. This isn't magic. It's an energetic consequence. Vibration comes before form, always. Form is merely the result of the frequency that came before. And when you start to realize this, your relationship with reality changes. You stop trying to control outcomes and start adjusting the source, because it no longer makes sense to chase external changes if what generates everything inside keeps vibrating the same. The law is active all the time, even if you don't know it, even if you don't want it. And it's not moved by drama. It doesn't respond to empty intention. It answers to vibrational coherence, and that's where the missing link appears. The piece almost everyone ignored when trying to transform life without changing the field. The invisible connection between the internal state and the reality that takes shape around it. Because when this key is rediscovered, the entire field responds as if it had been waiting for your vibrational command to begin reorganizing. And that command, contrary to what many believe, doesn't come from your voice or from your actions or from what you show the world. It comes from what you vibrate in silence. Even now, as you read these words, something in you is emitting a signal. It doesn't matter if you're quiet, still, calm. Your frequency is active all the time. You are a transmitter, a vibrational field in full operation. And this isn't belief, it's energetic fact. Your presence speaks before your mouth opens. Have you noticed? Some people enter a room, and without saying a word, the atmosphere shifts. Others arrive, and even smiling, bring an invisible weight that you feel in your body. That's vibration. It's not about appearance. It's about energetic coherence. The problem is that most people aren't aware of this. They think they vibrate only when they choose to, when they meditate, when they're doing something spiritual. But the truth is, the field never switches off. It doesn't pause. It's always emitting. Even when you're asleep, even when you're distracted, even when you're pretending to be okay. The frequency you emit is built by small invisible habits, by recurring thoughts, by emotional patterns that repeat like a background track, by intentions you don't even speak out loud, but that shape your vibration from the inside out. Everything you sustain internally, even unconsciously, is shaping your reality externally. And that's where the root of the problem lies. Most people try to change their lives by adjusting what they do without ever looking at what they're vibrating. They change jobs, change cities, change relationships, but keep attracting the same kind of experiences because the frequency they emit remains the same. The form changes, but the field doesn't, and the field is sovereign. The master understood this with almost surgical precision. To him, external reality was a direct reflection of constant energetic emission. In other words, what's around you doesn't determine your vibration. It reflects it. The world shows you every day what you're vibrating, not to punish you, but to awaken you. But why is it so hard to keep that field stable? Why does vibration fluctuate so much even when you know all this? Because there is interference. External frequencies trying to scramble your signal, collective vibrations, unresolved traumas, thoughts planted in you since childhood. All of this acts as noise in your field, and it's that noise that destabilizes your vibration. But there's a breaking point, a moment when, even with noise, even with chaos, even with imbalance around you, your internal field can remain stable. A steady, silent frequency that doesn't break even under pressure. And it's exactly at this point that the master's technique begins to emerge clearly. An internal practice, invisible, almost imperceptible, but that changes the entire way your energy organizes itself. The first enemy of vibration, fragmented thought. And for this reorganization to be possible, it needs to pass through an obstacle that most people don't even notice: the chaos of fragmented thought. You were trained to overthink. From an early age, your mind was conditioned to operate in a state of silent hyperactivity, racing thoughts, automatic comparisons, internal criticism, endless task lists. And all of this happens while you're living, while brushing your teeth, while walking, while talking, while trying to relax. The mind doesn't stop, and what few people understand is that this invisible noise comes at a cost. Thinking in itself isn't the problem. Thought is a tool. But when you no longer have control over it, when your thoughts become random, repetitive, disordered, your vibration begins to lose coherence. Because every thought carries a charge, a color, a subtle sound, a frequency. And when those thoughts are disorganized, they create a chaotic field around you. You've felt this. Moments when your head is so full you can't even breathe properly. You try to focus, but part of you is in the past, another in the future, another trying to predict, another trying to control. This fragmented mental state translates into fragmented vibration, and that misaligned field is what prevents your energy from stabilizing in higher frequencies. The master understood this deeply. To him, thought was the first point of vibrational entry. If the mind is misaligned, the entire field becomes vulnerable. It's like a cracked foundation trying to hold up a structure. You might build something beautiful on the outside, but inside, everything is at risk of collapse. And this is where many people fail. They try to change their vibration while ignoring the thought behind it. They try to raise their energy without realizing that what supports that elevation is the baseline mental pattern. Because if the mind vibrates fear, judgment, comparison, control. It doesn't matter what you do on the outside. The internal field can't hold. But there is a way, and it's not complicated. What the master taught wasn't forced control of the mind, or an attempt to silence thoughts by force. He spoke of alignment, of conscious focus, of living presence, of choosing what to observe, of stepping out of autopilot, and returning to the center of your own awareness. That alignment begins with a simple decision to observe without getting involved. To notice the thoughts but not follow all of them. Not respond to every mental impulse. Not automatically believe everything that passes through your mind. It's when you begin to watch your thoughts like watching clouds pass in the sky, without trying to grab them, without trying to stop them, just noticing. And this state of observation, even if it lasts just a few minutes, already begins to shift your vibration because it brings order. It silences the noise. It restores power. The energy field responds immediately when it senses that consciousness is back in charge. You don't need to eliminate all thoughts or turn your mind into a Zen garden. You just need to create space. Just interrupt the pattern long enough for the energy to reorganize. And in that space, the field starts to pulse with clarity again. But something is still missing. There's another layer that must be understood for this vibration to stay alive and constant. It's no use organizing thought if emotion keeps fluctuating. And here begins one of the most powerful keys in all the wisdom the master left behind. Have you ever had a moment when everything seemed to fall apart, but still felt a silent peace take over you? Or, in the middle of a completely unstable situation, felt such deep gratitude that you couldn't even explain where it came from? These experiences aren't coincidence. They don't come from chance. They happen when, for a moment, your vibration connects with a higher emotional code. But the secret isn't in feeling that once in a while. The real impact happens when you learn to sustain that state, when peace no longer depends on external silence and gratitude no longer depends on outer achievements. When emotion stops being a reaction and becomes a vibrational decision. Most people still believe emotion is something that just happens to them, as if they're trapped in an emotional thermometer that rises or falls with life's climate. But that's an illusion. Emotion is frequency, emotion is energy in motion, and above all, emotion can be cultivated, trained, chosen. The master understood this at a level science is only beginning to scratch. He knew that elevated emotions, like love, gratitude, compassion, and reverence, aren't just beautiful feelings. They're vibrational matrices. They organize the field. They clear the noise. They create an inner environment where energy aligns so precisely that everything around begins to respond in tune. But there's an even more powerful point. When you manage to sustain an elevated emotion long enough, it stops being a temporary state and becomes an energetic signature. And that signature is what the universe recognizes. It's what defines what you attract, what you sustain, what you expand. Sustained emotion is the field telling the universe, this is who I am now. Not because of something, not as a reaction to a blessing, but as a choice, as a vibrational identity. And when that happens, the frequency stabilizes. Vibration no longer needs external reinforcements to stay. It begins to exist on its own. And this is one of the forgotten pillars of the master's technique, because it's not about pretending to be joyful or forcing optimism. It's about cultivating, with presence and honesty, emotions that are compatible with the reality you wish to manifest. True emotions, born from within, that remain steady even when the outer world falls apart. And when you learn to maintain that state, even if the world outside is collapsing, something begins to happen in silence. The field organizes itself, not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned to vibrate in authentic and sustained emotion, even in the midst of chaos. And when that happens, your frequency begins to cut through the dense layers that once held you back. But for this vibration to remain uninterrupted, you must access a point where almost no one manages to stay: the now. Yes, the now. The only place where reality truly happens. But for the conditioned mind, the present is almost forbidden territory. Most people live fragmented, one half stuck in old memories, reliving mistakes, wounds, grudges, and the other half projecting fantasies, expectations, fears of things that haven't even happened yet. It's a constant swing between what's already passed and what hasn't come. And that mental dance drains energy. This fragmentation creates holes in the vibrational field. It causes leaks. It scatters your presence. The vibration that could be anchored and steady gets lost in narratives that no longer exist or may never exist. The master used to say that time is a functional illusion. It serves to organize things in the material world, but it doesn't define consciousness. Consciousness vibrates in the eternal now, and only in this moment can you truly access the center of your energetic power. When you are present, whole, vibration aligns like a beam of light piercing through every layer of your being. The body responds, the mind quiets, the field pulses, and this state of presence has an effect that many complex rituals can't produce immediate coherence. It's as if by fully inhabiting the now, you reorganize everything around you without needing to control anything. Life responds because it finally senses you there, fully there. This state isn't reached through effort. It's a return, a remembrance, and it's precisely within this that the master's forgotten technique begins to fully activate, because it doesn't require you to do anything. It requires you to be. But even if you access the now, there's a second factor that can destroy your vibration in seconds: internal incoherence. And it's more common than it seems. You say you want peace, but you get involved in everything that throws you off balance. You claim to believe in the light, but keep reacting with fear, jealousy, anger, and guilt. You post beautiful quotes but carry silent judgments, unresolved feelings, inner disconnects that keep piling up and creating vibrational cracks. And the universe, which hears everything through frequency, isn't fooled by words. It doesn't listen to what you declare with your mouth. It picks up what you emit with the totality of your field. And when there's incoherence, it responds with confusion, with obstacles, with distorted reflections, not as punishment, but as a mirror. So you can see where you're still fragmented. The master understood that the technique only reveals itself to those who live in alignment. And this alignment is not perfection. It's true presence. It's coherence between what you think, feel, say, and do. When those four come together, the field creates a kind of magnetism that starts shaping reality from the inside out. And this magnetism doesn't depend on rituals or magic words. It's born from vibrational honesty, from your ability to be whole with yourself. Because when mind, body, emotion, and soul vibrate in the same tone, the field expands with a strength that doesn't break, and the frequency stops fluctuating with the world. When the universe tests your frequency, the silent proof begins, but the world in turn begins to react. Because whenever you access a new state of consciousness, the entire universe reorganizes around that new vibration, and what seems like a test is actually a confirmation. You start vibrating higher, and suddenly, old situations come back. That person who used to make you doubt yourself shows up again. An old habit tries to pull you back. Heavy emotions that had been asleep rise up as if awakened by your own light. And in that moment, the old mind screams, "See, nothing has changed." But that's a lie. It has changed. What's different now is that you're shining a light on what used to go unnoticed. What's happening isn't regression. It's the field silently and firmly asking, are you ready to sustain who you've chosen to become? Are you ready to remain anchored in the new frequency, even in the face of the old scenario? Or will you go back to negotiating your vibration just to fit into the old programming? This is where many fall. They think they've failed because they felt bad or because reality hasn't yet reflected the new vibration. But this part of the journey isn't a mistake. It's a process. The new energy needs to stabilize. And for that, it needs to go through the friction of resistance, not as punishment, but as confirmation. The master's forgotten technique doesn't reveal itself when everything is easy. It solidifies precisely when everything around you seems to fall apart, because that's the moment you have the chance to show, to yourself and to the field, that your vibration is no longer a hostage to circumstances, that your frequency is now identity, not a passing state. If you sustain it, something sacred begins to happen in your reality. The same situations that used to throw you off now lose their grip. What once paralyzed you begins to dissolve, and the world around you, little by little, starts to align with the new vibration you've claimed as your truth. And after everything comes the most important point of this whole journey. High vibration isn't a gift nor a magical technique. It's an energetic identity. It's not about trying to look more enlightened. It's about becoming who you already were, just without the noise that kept you from your essence. You don't need perfection. You don't need to get it right all the time. High frequency doesn't come from force. It comes from truth, from surrender, from your willingness to stop fighting life and start living in coherence with what truly vibrates inside you. That's the Master's legacy. He didn't leave a formula. He left a path, a way of living where the energy field becomes an extension of the soul, where every choice reflects who you are completely. When this vibration is sustained, what happens outside no longer matters, because what happens outside adjusts to what you've already stabilized within. And then you realize you're no longer reacting to the world. You're vibrating the world. You become the point of origin, the center of the field, the energetic reference of the very reality you wish to experience. And now that you know, there's no going back. It's time to choose. To sustain this frequency like a true energetic master. Not because you want to prove something, but because you finally remembered who you are. If you've made it this far, it's because this message activated something within you. So, leave a comment now. Thoth'S, I sustain my vibration permanently. That phrase isn't just a comment. It's a vibrational confirmation. Whoever writes it anchors it. And if you want to help this channel continue sharing messages like this with more people, there's a link in the first pinned comment to contribute directly to the mission. Any support helps keep this content alive, vibrating, and reaching those who need it most. And before you go, pay attention. A special video was set aside for you. If you felt this connection, it's about to appear on your screen. Click on it, because that's where the next key will be revealed. It's in that next video that the frequency you began to access here will fully consolidate.